So folks, let's talk about Chappell Roan today. I want to take a look at her astrological birth chart first. Now, fortunately, I believe that we have the accurate time and place of her birth. And it may turn out that later on down the road that she or her PR team hid the actual time of her birth or place of her birth from us. And that's the right of those VIP folks to do if they want to do, right? That's what a lot of VIPs do, actually. But in this case, we have her birth being the 19th of February in 1998 at 10:05 p.m., 10:05 in the evening in Willard, Missouri, okay? So that gives us all the information that we need to kind of figure out who the stars said that she could possibly be as she grew up, or the stars that were present around her birth, okay? So I've got an image of her birth chart up on the screen right now. I pulled this from astroseek.com. Fantastic engine. Now, this is really interesting. There are a couple of planets that don't have aspect patterns associated with them. I did notice that she has 3 stelliums to deal with, unfortunately, in this particular lifetime, and that can create a lot of really heavy energy, especially when those 3 energies or those 3 stelliums are sitting in Aquarius and Pisces. And we already know with Aquarius that that's a very rebellious, black and white, hot and cold kind of eccentric kind of energy, and you can probably see in her PR pictures or in the costumes that she finds that she does tend to be attracted to the more eccentric parts of expressing herself creatively. Especially, this seems to be something that she got accustomed to when she was little, because the Aquarius stellium at least appears in the 4th house where she came from. The 4th house associated with origins, how she grew up, how she is privately. She tends to be kind of an eccentric person. We'll get further into the planets that are associated with Aquarius in just a second. But I also want to take a look at her Pisces stellium. This appears in her 5th house. So she's got her Sun, her Jupiter, South Node, and her Mars all appearing as a stellium. And South Node isn't part of that because it's a mathematical point, not a planet. But she still has a stellium right there in Pisces, and that gives a lot of power to her creative energy, her playful energy, and also it gives a lot of power to her romantic life, to her romantic pursuits. It's a very dreamy placement to have with all that Pisces energy. It can also lend itself to heavy illusionment, disillusionment, delusionment. It can also lead to having a lot of intuitive energy, possibly, if she's willing to use it that way. But delusion popped up pretty heavily when I started to think about and work with the energy of with her birth chart. Okay, that's a possibility. We've got a couple of different placements here, especially with the degrees, that kind of pull her in an even more specific direction, okay? So we'll talk more about planets and degrees and placements. I want to talk about some more more interactions within her particular birth chart. So I noticed that her Sun and her Jupiter in Pisces have a squaring, a difficult relationship with her Moon and Pluto together in Sagittarius, a difficult relationship. So this means that her Pisces energy wants to go in one particular direction, has a dreamy direction that it wants to go, and Jupiter in Pisces says that it can absolutely go in this cool, creative direction. And with Jupiter being in Pisces at 3 degrees, that 3rd degree describes her being quite intellectual and being able to plan to a certain to a certain level about what she would like to do, what she would like to accomplish, and she gets there because that Jupiter is going to work well with that third degree, because the third degree is associated with Mercury, with Gemini specifically. So she's able to gather information about how to manifest her dreams, and then she does it. So she's a force to be reckoned with right there. But because her moon and her Pluto appear together on the same degree, the 7th degree of relationships, sometimes the people that she works with in business makes manifesting these creative dreams difficult for her, because they say that there are financial limitations to what it is that she specifically wants to do. It may be that she finds herself coming up against people pretty consistently on her management team who tell her, we can't do that because we have budgetary constraints. We don't have the equipment. We don't have the employees. We don't have the manpower to do what it is that you want to achieve. Chappell is something that she may pretty consistently find herself running up against. Okay. So that's something that she might have to work around gracefully, ideally. We'll talk about the gracefully here in just a second, because there's some energy lending itself to that. That Mars in Pisces kind of tells me more about her motivation, her ambitions, and it has a positive relationship with that Venus in Capricorn. So she's able to, if she works with a romantic partner, for instance, she's able to really chart out a really specific path towards realizing a particular dream. That 20th degree, I believe, let me check my notes for just a second. 20th degree is associated with Scorpio, so this is someone who is able to plan very carefully to realize a dream, and also get kind of vengeful when it comes to people who get away with that. And she might attract a romantic partner who acts as a manager and also kind of vibes with her in the sense that they kick people out of the way who don't belong in their circle, who are in their path, so to speak. And that could be potentially a place where it can be something that works well for her, because that is a sextiling, a good dynamic. But on the other hand, it can be used as a weapon. It can be used against other people who may not deserve it. Okay, that's just something for her to be cautious about. Is attracting a romantic partner who is a kind of partner in crime, who may be management, who may help her realize her dreams, but who may potentially help her realize the worst version of herself when it comes to pushing people aside who she perceives may be in the way of her dreams. Okay? So we'll talk more about her vertex, fated encounters. Her vertex appears at 28 degrees in Taurus. And the 28 degrees, once again, let me check my notes, is associated with Cancer. So that's associated with family. And there may be some fated encounters that occur when it comes to family patterns, karmic patterns, generational trauma, generational karmic debts that will be her responsibility to a certain point to relieve, to release, to diffuse. And especially when it appears, when that vertex, those fated encounters appear in the 8th house, these are going to be especially transformative for her as she encounters them, and hopefully reaches towards her best or highest good and deals with them in the best way possible. She doesn't have to. She can choose not to. But these are ones that may take place quite publicly. They may not be private. They may be what take place underground, because the 8th house is associated with Pluto, and Pluto is what takes place underground, beneath the surface. So you may see the results pop up on the surface, and we'll talk again more about that, what pops up on the surface. But it tells me that there are some patterns that she needs to, generational debts, that she needs to release when it comes to karmic debts. With that vertex and with that Taurus, when she is confronted with things that make her feel stable, that make her feel financially and just materially stable, those are the points when she's going to have a reckoning personally with the layers, the habits that her family have put, I should say, when I say layers, the karmic patterns that her family has had to deal with and they've unwittingly passed on to her. I hope I'm making sense there, okay? Some heavy stuff for her to deal with. So let's get into what's going on in her first house. And when I've said about what she has to deal with in a very public face, with the first house, this is what people see. When they encounter her, this is what they see. And unfortunately, her Chiron is in her first house. This is people getting to see her pain, what brings about pain to her. It's one of the first things that unfortunately people see, or people pretty quickly pick up on this, that she's carrying her heart on her sleeve. And as a Scorpio, with that Chiron appearing in Scorpio, that's going to be a heavy energy. And people are just going to, it's possible that she was bullied pretty heavily when she was growing up, and that may not be part of her story. But there is that kind of sense that maybe she might have been the bully because she's hiding inner insecurities that she's dealt with her whole life, that she was born with. This is her Chiron wound. And with Scorpio, I'm visualizing a scorpion that goes out and hurts people just because it's dealing with stuff on the inside that it doesn't want to deal with, but it's being forced to deal with anyway. So this is someone, even though this Chiron in Scorpio isn't aspecting anything, it is a difficult wound to deal with because it appears in the first house, because it is public, because people see it. Chappell herself may not see the Chiron wound for what it is. She may choose not to deal with her shadow aspect pattern, what I associate with the Chiron wound. But other people will see it. And that will make being existing kind of difficult for her. Okay? So this isn't easy. We've got this Black Moon Lilith in Libra in the 12th house, and it's interesting that Black Moon Lilith appears in the 12th house because 12th house is already a very secretive kind of house. This is what we don't want revealed to the public, but what still affects us very, very deeply. So with Libra, this is someone who has can have a very romantic, magnetic energy towards whoever they are sexually attracted to. And other people won't realize why they're so magnetic. And Chappell herself may not realize how she is so magnetic, that she just is. She's going to have some deep desires also that she's not willing to. She's going to get a great big kick out of being a sexually romantically sensual person, and she's going to enjoy feeling that in a very private place, and you're going to see that kind of pop out on the surface just because she enjoys that part of herself so much. So she's going to pull people in when it comes to her romantic attractions, and they're not going to understand how they got in so deep with her, but it's going to feel amazing. It's going to feel like there's kind of a sexual thrill with her. She's going to express herself very deeply when it comes to sexual stuff. And also, with that being so close to that Chiron and Scorpio, there could be a part of her that lashes out romantically when it comes to romantic partners who she perceives have slighted her in some way, either sexually or romantically, or have cheated on her in some way. There's going to be a part of her that lives the very high life, a very high octane kind of romantic sexual life, potentially, okay? And it may kind of clash with that understanding of who she is, with that Venus in Capricorn, because there's a part of her romantic sexual life that wants a lot of thrill, that wants to be the dominant one. She might like a little bit of BDSM play behind the scenes. She might enjoy being the dominant partner behind the scenes. Take that with a grain of salt, okay? That may not actually be true, but there's that one aspect of her, but then that multifaceted part of her romantic and sexual life says that she's a very steady kind of lover, that she is a steady family romantic kind of person, ostensibly, okay? Now this is interesting. She doesn't have anything going on in her 10th house, what I would associate with someone who has fame in their corner, okay? We can talk about that a little bit later. But definitely with that Venus in Capricorn, she attracts people who are stable because she is stable herself. Her fortune is also tied to stability. That is where she is going to find where she is happiest, where she's going to feel most comfortable and settled, is when things are good. Now remember that I talked about those fated encounters with that vertex in Taurus. There will be places where financially and materially that she is challenged. And if she has a strong relationship with her romantic partners, she can enjoy a stable partnership through those challenging financial times. And definitely if she and her partner are a good team in lashing out at people for better and for worse, then they stand a better chance to weather challenging financial material situations. And if they continue to stay in the United States, which I see in the future that they will, she will see her financial situation challenged, because the whole of the United States right now is currently transitioning into a different kind of government system, a far more destructive one. And VIPs are not going to be able to get away from the realities of what's going on right here, and especially with Pluto being in Aquarius. And because she has a stellium in Aquarius, she's going to be feeling the effects of that. Her Uranus appears in Aquarius, so she's going to be sensitive especially to all the tremors, the societal upheaval that we are currently going through, and you might see that show up in her music. When it comes to her 4th house, she's going to be feeling this pretty deeply, and she might have been feeling this well in advance of, I felt like she rose kind of quickly right before Pluto in Aquarius started to make its power made its power be felt. I'm sorry that I'm stumbling over my words. So it kind of makes sense that she would kind of come up with that Pluto in Aquarius kind of sensation, or that dynamic. When Pluto in Aquarius started to transit and come into effect, that's when she started to come into her star power as well. That makes sense. With that Neptune in Aquarius, she's got some really cool dreams about what she wants to do creatively, and I wonder if that 4th house won't feed that 5th house. There isn't any aspect pattern that says that there's a dynamic there, but I wonder still if those two stelliums don't kind of feed off of each other when it comes to what she wants to do creatively speaking. So she might workshop some ideas behind the scenes with that 4th house, some new adventurous kinds of ideas, and those feed what she actually accomplishes with that 5th house Pisces energy, okay? It's interesting. She's definitely someone to watch for better and for worse, okay? So I'm trying to look at the rest of this. I see in her North Node that appears in Virgo, and it's not aspecting anything in her birth chart, but that North Node is about what challenges us, where we need to grow, what we encounter in life that forces us to make a choice about who we're going to be. And when it comes to, I'm getting harvest. Virgo is heavily associated with the first harvest. And Virgo is also about cutting, is associated with the scythe, with bringing in what it is that we've earned. So when it comes to the things that Chappell earns over gradually over years, if not decades, that's going to be something that she's going to have to deal with when it comes to the things that she does to people. And with all that heavy Scorpio energy, with that Mars associated with the 20th degree, that Scorpio energy, that warlike energy, and also with that Chiron in Scorpio in the first house, she's going to have to learn that what goes around comes around. These are not aspecting each other, but their dynamic could still be felt in her life, and it's going to have to be something that, if her PR team isn't there to shield her from the consequences of her actions, you could see her true colors come out, and you could see her make a choice about who she's going to become in response to facing off consequences of her for her own actions with how she's treated people. Okay, we haven't even gotten to the even heavier stuff, because we haven't talked about her Saturn return, which starts this year. Saturn was in Aries at the time of her birth, and it appears within 17 degrees. Yes, 17 degrees. So on May 24th, because she has a lot of heavy watery energy, which lends itself to intuition. So because she has that heavy intuition, whether she listens to it or not, she's going to feel like something big is changing, and it is. Her Saturn return starts on May 24th. She may already be feeling its shadow right now. The 17th degree, currently checking my notes, is associated with Leo. Now that's interesting, because Leo is all about star power. So this is going to be taking place on a very public stage. And because Saturn in Aries in the 17th degree associated with Leo appears in her sixth house, which is associated with daily work habits, things that she does on a daily basis, Saturn is going to be constricting her when it comes to how she boldly moves forward and says, I'm going to do this. And here's my celebrity star power with that 17th degree associated with Leo. She's going to face constrictions on a very public stage when that Saturn return really kicks off. I will put on the screen how long this Saturn return is going to last for Chappell, but this is potentially one where the universe kind of takes her to task for any bad habits that she's brought into the Saturn return when it comes to how she, again, behaves towards her associates, when it comes to how she behaves towards her employees, whether that's her dancers or her personal assistants or her managers, it doesn't matter. She's going to be forced to grow up with this Saturn return, and with it being on such a public stage, she has the potential for some humiliating moments that are going to be difficult for her to deal with, that would be difficult for anyone to deal with, but most especially for someone who may be potentially emotionally young, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It is often associated with children and with youthfulness, with teenagerishness. So this is especially going to be potentially difficult for Chappell, because Saturn, the much older, much more experienced adult, is putting the disciplinary restrictions on this youthful child. And I don't mean to talk down to anybody, but this is going to force Chappell to grow up, when in the past she might have been coddled by a variety of people. And once again, this appears in the sixth house. This is going to be potentially a daily confrontation where older people say, no, we're not going to do things like that, Chappell. Or she may be confronted with situations. Her PR and management teams may be confronted with situations where they cannot proceed any further. And that's the universe's way of telling Chappell, listen, you can't be like this. You can't act like this. You can't take this particular action, because Daily steps lead to long-term habits, and they eventually form who we become. Daily choices lead eventually to who we choose to become later on in life, and it's forcing her to become a different person. Also, I note that her descendant is an Aries. She is attracted to people who are fiery, people who don't mind being on stage, who don't mind being first, who don't mind going to war for a particular cause, whether that's a low vibrational or a high vibrational cause. So she might find herself getting swept up with people who end up putting her in situations that constrict or restrict her in some fashion, to a point that she can't grow until she lets go of those particular people. So just because we're attracted to a person romantically speaking doesn't mean that we should be together with those particular people, okay? And with her ascendant being in Libra, she has the potential to have some very whirlwindy kind of romantic partnerships. Partners in crime, Scorpio energy. She might find herself together with people who burn her, as well as burn the people around them. She has the potential to find herself in abusive domestic partnerships. Okay? I hope for her sake that she doesn't find herself in those. Spirit is saying to close things off here. Honestly, I'm only reading her birth chart. I'm not even touching her current transits. That might be something for you personally if you enjoy looking at astrological transits and Hori charts. I think I'm saying that right. If you like looking at Hori current transit charts, this is the perfect opportunity for you to do the same. I've got her birth chart information right there in the left-hand corner for you if you want to use it. Otherwise, let's move into some other parts of this reading. I've got some questions that I want to ask Spirit about Chappell Roan. I am working with the Osho Zen for one, and I am working with the Light Seer's Tarot, and that'll be it with the decks that I use. So my first question is, what was Chappell Roan meant to do in this lifetime? And again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing her name, okay? I'm going to be using the Osho Zen first. I don't believe reversals are necessary with this, but it also often has a very different message from the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, even though it follows the imagery of Rider-Waite-Smith. I shuffle until Spirit asks me to stop. Well, Spirit's putting some cards up bottom. Well, look at this. Stress. Seven of Fire, also known as the Seven of Wands. My camera is not that great, but what you can see in this image is a monkey with a long needle in his hand. He's about to pop the balloon that this particular man is balancing on, and this man is balancing all kinds of different, it looks like dynamite. Actually, trying to juggle dynamite and blow a horn and perform for the monkey all at once while the monkey says, "More, harder, faster, or I'll pop this balloon that you're floating on above this chasm." She's being shoved to perform at this particular time, or something about what she's meant to learn in this lifetime is how to deal with these kinds of situations in an adult, persuasive manner. That's interesting, a persuasive manner, in a way that calms the collective and doesn't make them think that she's about to scream and fly off the handle at them. I wonder if Chappell Roan isn't a bit of a difficult person for the management team to deal with. behind the scenes. That was the energy from the bottom of the deck, by the way. She's putting them in this position as much as she feels like her situation is putting herself in the situation of the entity trying to balance on this particular balloon that could be popped at any second. Okay, I'm going to pull from the top. We've got the Lovers, also associated with Libra. I should say Gemini. And Gemini didn't feature in her particular chart, but I often associate the Lovers with Venus, with Aphrodite, that kind of thing. And this is about a true heart communion. And I wonder if she isn't so distressed these days that she's not able to have a genuine heart communion with anybody because she's not able to come into a deep connection within herself. So she's not able to have an intimate, close relationship with herself, to have a robust relationship between her inner child and her inner adult. She's not going to be able to connect well to people that she's romantically linked to. And this might be one of the lessons that she's forced to learn, that she might be, as we saw with her natal chart, that she's attracted to people who encourage her to kind of go off because they're kind of a fiery nature and they encourage the rest of her to go off. They're going to stress her out, and she's called to realize that she doesn't need to be in this dynamic, that she can move to a firm, stable, and still a highly sexy and sensual kind of relationship, but without any of the darker aspect patterns that would pull the relationship into a shadowy karmic relationship as opposed to a light-filled divine relationship. She has this capacity to do this in this lifetime, but she has to do the work. Her PR, her manager, her mom can't protect her, okay? Here's the next card that pops out. We've got the Strength card, the Rebirth card. This is the Ten of Clouds. And ultimately, this is a person who awakes from the sleepiness of an unconsciously operating mind. We might call this a bot, an NPC. But you can't see this with my camera, but there's a sleepy camel that's underneath all these clouds. And underneath, from the camel, appears a lion, is really ready to take action, but just ready to roar forth, but not ready to think. But from that lion appears a child who is ready to take on the world from a new perspective altogether. You can see the halo of light that's around the little guy who's playing a flute, who's just enjoying life, who might appear with the imagery of the Fool. This is the best way to operate when it comes about the mind, to release sleepiness, to release reactions, but just to appreciate situations as they arise, even if they're difficult. This is to look at the world through the eyes of a child, to once again to befriend that inner child together with the inner adult. To balance that is something that Chappell is called to do in this lifetime. So there's some powerful lessons for her to learn here, whether or not she does, and I really hope that she does. I'm not into her music or anything like that, but I really would love to see her reaching her best and her highest good. That's the best kind of revolution that any individual can have. Not a bloody, violent one at all, but one where you face, or a person faces off the shadows within themselves, makes friends with them, recognizes them for what they are, but doesn't use their powers, but instead understands how they inform how a person reacts, responds to their particular world. And often those shadows were not put there by a person's fault or anything like that, but the unfortunate thing is a lot of us are born with intergenerational trauma, and that's something that she might have to deal with that vertex in Taurus. Specifically, was the 20th or the 28th degree? One of those or another tied it back to family, specifically the sign of Cancer. Okay. The next card I pulled, I'm doing a 3x3 spread with, I laid out stress, the lovers, and rebirth as the top row. And here I've got, this is control. With all that Capricorn energy, she might be the kind of person to really require control, but will also allow others to possibly control her. She may feel swept away at times by how people encourage her, influence her to behave with that Pluto and that moon, with that 7 degrees in Sagittarius. 7 degrees being tied to that partnerships, not just marriage relationships, but really, really close, like best friend relationships, like karmic, divine best friend relationships will be ruled by that particular house. I wonder if people are encouraging her to show a side of herself that she doesn't feel like exists, but she puts on a front because she feels like it protects people from seeing her real emotional side, her emotional aspect. That's hard for her to handle. She doesn't want people to see it. Her manager, her PR team don't want to deal with it in the sense that they don't want the public to talk about it, so they have to do, their job becomes harder, so they encourage her to hide it too. Control at all costs. But she's bursting at the seams is what this picture also suggests. This is the King of Clouds. We have 2 clouds cards in a row. Clouds are associated with the swords, Sweet, and the Rider-Waite-Smith. That's all about the mind, and especially about the mind overtaking who we are as people. In this particular case, I wonder if it doesn't overtake her willingness to make choices, risky choices, that would upset a lot of the people around her, but would vibe correctly within herself, as well as what the universe might want for her to do. I wonder if she overthinks everything because she's encouraged to do so, but also I wonder if she didn't grow up in that kind of environment too. That moon in Sagittarius encourages this. I said overthinking. Look at this card. It's clinging to the past. Overthinking the past. This is the 5 of water, also known as the 5 of cups. This entity is trapped in a block full of memories that they can't get past, but behind them is the shape, the vague shape with my camera, of a champagne glass that's clear. It shows you completely what's in its contents. There's nothing hiding underneath all those layers because you're expected to see layers underneath that particular box. That's just the surface layer. And this person can't get away from it because they don't want to let go of this particular block of memories. They don't want to move on to something fresh and new. And it appears below the lovers, by the way. Chappell may be carrying around some relationship baggage from the past, even from a past lifetime. A literal past lifetime. And it's hard to let those kinds of things go. That Chiron and Scorpio wound may be showing up, especially when it comes to the first house. She may choose to lash out at romantic partners in her songs, and people can see. She thinks she's being artistic, but people see. Truly mature people see more than she lets on. She's still in many ways, with that Saturn and Aries, a kid. Respectfully to her, okay, and to her fans. We've got clinging to the past, control. If I don't let people see who I truly am, then I can control my situation, then it'll be easier behind the scenes. Now this is interesting. She has that 5th house Pisces stellium, and this right here suggests that by becoming best friends with her inner child, her inner adult and her inner child work well together, she learns to master herself and teaches other people how to have fun with their creative, playful, childlike, romantic sides without losing any kind of maturity. That it is, in fact, appreciating the inner child that makes the inner adult so great. This is the master that suggests that a deep understanding of inner spirituality, but also a deep understanding of play and of enjoying the material world is what brings the deepest satisfaction to everyone, not just Chappell. Okay? We're going to continue to pull from the top. We've got silence here. This is that the star card? That's 17. I'm going to go with this as the star card. I almost said moon. But this is about observing the inner silence within. In order to let go of control, in order to relieve the stress, she needs to come to a place where she can observe the inner silence within herself, and there she will find true peace. She is a highly intuitive person if she will slow down enough and listen to her inner intuition. She has a lot of heavy earth and water energy within herself. A lot of watery energy, mostly I noticed. A lot of earth and watery energy. Anyway, she's someone who can be incredibly intuitive if she chooses to do so. She can be an earth mother, even. An earth, like a granola crunchy mom. Not like bad. But she could be a really down-to-earth kind of role model, in the sense that she feels approachable. If she were to choose to become this kind of person, if she were to observe this inner silence, let go of control, and in turn let go of any stress that she puts on herself or puts on others. That thing where I saw in like Faux Moi that she pushed one of her assistants or pushed somebody on the red carpet pretty aggressively, and it was attention catching for a lot of people. Okay, there is some of that get out of my way pride involved with that Saturn Aries. She's about to be clipped short, and her intuition is telling her that she's not always going to be able to behave that way without consequences. Okay, we've got the Fool next. Childlike energy expressed in the best way possible, starting over a new cycle, but still with lessons learned from previous cycles. There's something about this deep, passionate connection with other people that surpasses sexual, surpasses romantic, and moves into the deep understanding, deep compassion that will allow her to move from the past and will allow her to start a new version of herself that she desperately needs to enjoy. This is emotional transformation that she needs to go through here, and this won't be easy, but it will be well worth the journey, and her inner child will rejoice. Definitely a sense with that heavy fifth house Pisces energy, that stellium. She's going to benefit from transforming her inner child. Just because the child is a child doesn't mean that the inner child can't transform itself alongside in order to be in tune with the best and the highest version of the self. Because the inner child transforms each time the person is reborn to learn lessons, possibly relearn lessons, okay? But if she observes inner silence, she can start a new, better cycle for herself that will feel good. She'll be able to listen to her intuition. She won't have to rely so heavily on other people around her, but she is going to have to go through a growing up, a maturation process in order to get to that point, okay? Last and not least, past lives. I've been saying karmic lessons from the past. Intergenerational trauma, karmic debts, intergenerational karmic debts for her to relieve past lives. There's a reason that she does things the way that she does. There's a reason that her family operates the way that it does. And once she realizes that and understands those shadow patterns for what they are, she's going to be able to come to a better place. She's going to be able to master herself. She's going to be able to wake up to respond to a situation and to be able to enjoy it for what it is and not just knee-jerk react her way through life. This is a habit that she's had to work with, possibly over lifetimes of karmic debt that she's had to work with over karmic lifetimes, and it continues to be a struggle before her. So no more for this particular spread. I'm going to move on to my next question. I'm going to reset with my particular cards, and I'll be right back. The next question I want to handle is, what advice would Spirit like to give Chappell about how she operates in life? I'm going to be working with the Light Seer's Tarot right here, and I'm about to put reversals into this particular deck and shuffle. Half and half. Turn one upside down. Here we go. I shuffle until Spirit asks me to stop. Let's do a Celtic cross. What advice would Spirit like to give Chappell Roan about how she operates in life? Okay. Well, this is the central card. Seven of Pentacles, it's in reverse. Watch out. You might lose crops because of your behavior. She might lose results that she really thought she worked really hard for as a result of her behavior. People might get turned off with her as a result of who she chooses to hang out with, who she chooses to marry, to date, to be friends with, who she chooses to associate with in general. She needs to watch out. They may cause her to pull up a lot of years of hard-won work, okay? We're going to continue to turn over and take from the top. We've got the Ten of Pentacles in reverse. Her family taught her some really bad habits about how to operate in life, especially when it comes to material resources that have a way of working their way into the present and the future in such a way that Chappell is affected. Remember how I talked about fated encounters and Taurus and how that was associated with the degree connected to Cancer? And I talked about intergenerational trauma. I wonder if that doesn't have to do with like overspending habits, for instance, or just like not managing material resources wisely. I wonder if there isn't intergenerational karmic debts that she needs to relieve. That is quite the challenge, because she's not doing a great job of relieving that karmic debt in this lifetime, unfortunately. Spirit is asking Chappell to start relieving this karmic debt, and she's not doing this. Enjoying the highlights of life. I'm getting that Saturn and Aries, when it starts to kick off, I noticed that Saturn is going to transition into Aries, and then it's going to retrograde back and out into Pisces later on this year. She's going to be pretty decently heavily affected by that sensation, because Saturn's going to be still having conversation with Saturn and Pisces people, about their boundaries between themselves and people that they thought that they could trust in life. She's going to have that conversation because she has such heavy Pisces energy, but then she's going to have to deal with that Saturn return in Aries, right? And it's going to affect her reputation in a very public way. We discussed this already. And there's the possibility that she could deal with the effects of not dealing with intergenerational karmic debts in a very public way as well, as in connection with her Saturn return, okay? There's the past. It's the Page of Pentacles. It's in reverse. I'm taking from the top, by the way. This is about not being careful with money. Quite simply, being young too. This is a page. This is childlike energy, not even teenager-ish. This is someone who is just getting started when it comes to building an investment, building a career that will materially benefit them, okay? So far, we have all Pentacles energy. This is about not using material resources wisely. It doesn't have to be money, but it can also be about not using material talents wisely. She's a singer. I don't know that she's handling stuff well, generally. And on the one hand, I'd expect that she's emotionally young. With that Saturn Aries, an emotionally young individual. And she may also be the kind who's used to getting her way. She may be used to a mom, at least, who's used to pushing people aside and that being successful. Okay. Here we have in the conscious position, this is the Knight of Swords. It's in reverse. I'll do what I can to get my way, to get the things done that I have to do. We discussed this already. We saw this show up in her astrological chart. She's that kind of ambitious, driven individual who's willing to shove people to the side to get what it is that she wants, for better and for worse. Sometimes somebody deserves to be shoved to the side, okay? They're not a pleasant person to begin with, and so the universe uses Chappell, who's already maybe a decently unpleasant person behind the scenes to deal with, uses one unpleasant person to deal with another just as or more unpleasant person, okay? Just saying. None of my business. Don't mean to criticize too heavily. We have here the Five of Swords. It's in reverse. This is about consequences coming home to roost. That Scorpio, that Chiron Scorpio injury that she was born with may have this thing where once she stings somebody, then she will find herself being stung in return. And again, that Saturn and Aries energy is about eventually she's going to be forced to slow her roll. And that's what this card is about. There's something that possibly in her conscious she's feeling that she's not always going to be able to act like this, to behave this way, because there's people that she doesn't know about. She's created enemies and she doesn't realize this. She's hurt people, and they're coming to get her in one fashion or another. It doesn't have to be violent at all. It can merely be petty high school drama shit, and you can be old as hell. You can be in the nursing home, in the elder senior care home, and still be dealing with high school dumbass shit, because that's a mindset. That's not an age group, okay? But she might be dealing with petty drama when it comes to people that she sniped, so to speak. She sniped when it comes to career. And yeah, chicken's coming home to roost. And it's going to tie back into this intergenerational karmic debt that her family, that she has to take a stab at relieving. And so far, I don't see her doing a fantastic job. And the universe is warning her that this is work that she should be and needs to be doing in order to live the best life possible. In the future position, we've got the Six of Wands, and it's in reverse. People will not be celebrating her. These are consequences, because people are going to see her as the selfish, these are Spirit's words, okay, as the selfish little kid bitch that she is on the inside. Someone who was spoiled rotten, quite possibly, and I can see that with that moon in Sagittarius. Sagittarius being associated with Jupiter, a moon being tied closely to mothers and the emotional figures or the emotionally intelligent, or the people who take care of our emotional needs as we grow up, okay? So it's possible that she was spoiled and was used to being put on a pedestal. Jupiter, Zeus, that kind of thing. The king, the god of Olympus. The king god of Olympus. And this is going to be forced to face reality. Hit with a brick wall. It's going to be hard for her. But this is the growing up process that she needs to participate in. And there's the possibility that she could become a real cool role model if she learns the lessons that the universe sends her. The advice card is the King of Cups, and it's in reverse. We're building the rod at this particular point. And it's indicating that if she is to navigate this cancellation period, we could call it, the Six of Wands in reverse. If she's to handle this cancellation period as best as she possibly can, then she is to recognize that she does not have the emotional intelligence that she should at this particular age, and that she needs to begin the emotional maturation process. That she's on top of the world in many cases when it comes to her particular maybe music genre, that a lot of people pay attention to her. I don't know too much about her career, but she's definitely got a lot of eyes on her. So that indicates to me with her being on top of the world in a sense when it comes to being king, but it also indicates to me that she doesn't have the emotional maturity to be on top of the world, to handle it in the best way possible that suits her best and her highest good, her higher inner self. This is her current environment. 5 of Cups in reverse. She hasn't reached this particular point yet. It's something that is possible for her to avoid if she starts to work on herself. But the answer is still kind of the same, that she's still going to regret how she behaved in the past if she comes to a place where she becomes more emotionally cognizant of who she is and how she behaves and how that looks to the general public. With Pluto in Aquarius, it's going to start to look particularly bad for members of the VIP class to treat their employees badly. Because Pluto in Capricorn, which we are still in the shadow of until January 2026, emphasized the power of VIPs, of the billionaire class, of governments, of political systems, of people who hold a shitload of very quiet power, who don't put themselves necessarily on the front stage. That glorified that particular group of people, and she was born during Pluto and Sagittarius at a time when that energy was starting to expand and became firm once Pluto moved into Capricorn after it sat in Pluto and Sagittarius when she was born. Okay, so she was already in a kind of an expansive state when the stars were above her when she was born, but as she grew up, that star power only became more solid. Okay. And so she may end up regretting how she's behaved in the past once the collective, which Pluto in Aquarius emphasizes, once the collective brings her behavior to her attention from their angle, not from the angle that she wants to see herself from. It's about selfishness for her. Finally, an upright card. It's the King of Swords. It lands in the fears and hopes position on the rod. She is afraid, quite possibly, of these kinds of people. Or I think what's more accurate to say is that she hopes that people will see her this particular way, as an intellectual giant, as an intellectual genius, as someone to pay attention to, as someone who is rebellious, kind of what you would expect to see with that your Aquarius stellium, especially with the 4th house. This is a private hope. She wants people to see her as someone who can lead the pack, the music pack, when it comes to redefining a genre, doing something a new and different and cool way. I thought I saw earlier that she liked to workshop ideas when it comes to new music, okay? And that's probably where she wants to be, hopefully, in the future. And if she can emotionally grow up, mentally, spiritually grow up, she can have King of Swords and more. She can have King of Swords, the Emperor, and the Empress energy if she wants to work towards that. She has that ability in her chart, but she has to choose to grow into that energy. It's not something that's just going to come naturally to her all the time. Here we've got the 9 of Wands. This appears in the outcome position, about feeling defensive, about not getting to take action even though the entity in this particular card wants to. In fact, they're waiting for the next hit. They've been hit over and over again, and they're just waiting for the next one. They're waiting for the next. She will come to a point where she will just wait for the next cancellation. Somebody will pull something out from the past or pull some kind of secret recording from some studio session And she's going to be forced to have a reckoning with how she's behaved or with how people perceive her. With Pluto in Aquarius, there's the real risk that people are going to get tired of rich people. And Pluto in Capricorn blessed rich people, bless the billionaire class, bless the wealthy class. Pluto in Aquarius kind of tends to pull those old structures down in favor of the collective gaining more power. And the hits she might come to a place where she finds the hits keep on coming, and who she chooses to be is going to be a big deal. She doesn't have to choose to become an emotionally mature person. In fact, this warns that she could choose to become an emotionally violent person. This absolutely personifies Scorpio, Mars kind of energy, especially Mars in Cancer, Mars in Pisces especially. That this is someone who can use their emotional and even intuitive abilities to do real damage to other people. This is a choice. She doesn't have to become emotionally intelligent. She can become the Scorpion that her first house shows the public that she is. Okay, this is a heavy read. She has a lot of growing up energy that I'm getting so far, but she can do this. I absolutely believe that she can if she chooses to head towards her best or highest self. Okay, let me gather up my cards and I'll be right back with another question. So my last question is, what are we, the collective, to learn from Chappell's life so far, how she's lived it? I will be using the Osho Zen Tarot. There we go, once again, to answer this particular question. And Spirit is indicating that only 3 cards are really necessary and that I only need to shuffle just a little bit. We are the world, 10 of rainbows, also known as the 10 of pentacles. And it's interesting, the 10 of pentacles landed in her Celtic cross. On the one hand, you could say that this is about, regardless of whether you're a VIP or a government official or a politician or an everyday regular person just trying to do their best in life to survive, to thrive, whatever, we need to recognize that we are all people, that we all have an inner self that must be recognized, that must be nourished, that must be grown, that we all must relieve karmic debts, that we all have the ability to gain a divine influence, to lead others towards their divine selves, that we all, regardless of what we're meant to do in our lifetimes, that we are one. We all come from one place, we all go back to one place, and ultimately we are all meant to reach that place where we no longer need to be reincarnated on the earth because we've absolved ourselves of all karmic debts, we've learned all karmic lessons. We don't need to come back, we don't need to be reincarnated. We can all have these experiences regardless of who we are, regardless of what station in life we are in. And also, it can be also taken as a warning to relieve what intergenerational trauma, what intergenerational karmic debts that you can. If the universe gives you that responsibility, do what you can to relieve that karmic debt in this lifetime so that you have more divine influence, more of a divine blessing in the next lifetime and even in the current lifetime. Ripeness. This is the 9 of rainbows. This is about recognizing the blessing of incredible results that are so incredible that they're falling from the tree. They're in perfect condition. It's time to enjoy them. It's about enjoying the moment because they won't be ripe for more than a couple of days. Remember, the bugs and the birds are going to get to these particular results. You need to treasure the moment as it happens. Treasure the beauty of nature as it happens. And I don't know that Chappell is doing this. She has heavy earth energy in her birth chart. There's ostensibly that energy where she should be the kind of person to enjoy plant life, animals, going out in nature, enjoying a garden even. And I don't know that she's slowing down well enough to enjoy nature and how beautiful each moment can be, and recognizing that, paying attention closely to each moment and watching how nature changes from moment to moment isn't like watching paint peel at all. It's something phenomenal to behold. I don't know that she's learned to treasure the smaller things in life just yet. Lots of pentacle energy I've noticed with her. She needs to become more grounded. That's what I'm getting from that. Okay, she needs to enjoy the beauty in life more. Needs to slow down. It's not all about career. It shouldn't be all about career. She's not going to give a flying fuck about her career when she's old and getting ready to pass away, right? She's lived out a good life. It's time for her to go. Will she be thinking about her career, or will she be thinking about the things that she could have done, the experiences that she could have had that she missed out on? Don't be like that. And I just spoiled the next card, didn't I? There's the Master. She can become an incredible role model to teach others how to behave, to teach others how to enjoy life, and to enjoy the company, the presence of others, regardless of who they are. She can be a VIP, but she can enjoy the presence and the company of anybody. She doesn't just hold herself to a few famous people. She enjoys the presence of every person, and she sees each person that she encounters in life as a story to hear. She encounters them as lessons to learn from. She expects a soul connection. Doesn't have to be as like a soul connection, but she can expect a brush with another work of art, another innovative work of art of someone who's just trying to get their way through life. She can learn to appreciate how they are also trying to appreciate life for what it is as best as they possibly can. She can choose to become an incredible role model. I hope that she does. I hope that she chooses to grow up. I hope that she chooses to learn the lessons that Saturn gives her over this Saturn return, and it's not going to be a short one from what I saw. I did a little bit of research between when I would stop the camera, and it looks like it's going to last until 2028, I believe. So this isn't going to be a short transit for her, and I don't know how easy it's going to be for her. I hope that she evolves into the best version of herself, because she looks like she could be a cool person, for real. So that's all from me. I hope that you got to enjoy this particular reading. Thank you for getting to this point. If you did, I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.